What is going on, everybody? This is Mike from the last Corvette, and as you can see, this is where the driver's side fuel tank would be. Well, let me start with this. I had to replace this evap clip right here, the retainer clip, and also the sleeve. The sleeve serves a purpose. Let me get from under the car and explain to you guys what I had to do and actually what happened to me. Because this here is something that you won't find on any YouTube videos, forums, or any of that stuff. So this is a crossover pipe that I got off eBay for 40 bucks. Got a pretty good deal. It's in perfect shape. See this right here? This is the retaining ring, or a sleeve, or a guide as you want to call it, with a broken tab. And I'll explain why that happened. Excuse me. So, you have one on the driver's side. This is the one that I removed. This is the male side of your return line running to the passenger side of the tank. And here is the sleeve on the opposite side. Now, you see these little tabs? So there's one at 12 o'clock, one at 6 o'clock. What that does is once it's pushed in, it locks in your return lines. Without it, you have this. You have play. So as you're trying to install the crossover into your tank right here, you wouldn't be able to engage. It would probably seat, you'll be able to lock this locking ring onto the tank, but your fuel return lines wouldn't be seated all the way into your female side of the return line, as you can see. So this is what happened to me. First of all, I had this tank fully mounted into the C6. This whole thing was in there. I was about 95% done. I had, my harness in, my evap lines hooked up. Now, the evap line that I showed you guys is this one here. Long story short is when you're either doing disassembly or reassembly, it kind of works in, obviously, reverse order, but one thing is for certain, you're not going to be able to get to this evap line until you release your crossover pipe when you're doing this assembly. And then when you take your reverse steps and you're doing reassembly, what you want to do is you want to slide your tank into position. Probably need to get some, blocks of wood or something to elevate the tank once it's in position under the vehicle, and then connect this evap line first before you start working on the actual crossover pipe. That's the trick. Now, the reason I brought up the little clip, I'll show you guys. I went to AutoZone, and I ended up getting this kit. It has a bunch of different retainers. Because this one here, so the other side of the evap line, see that right there? Right by the filler, which is right there. That one is easy to get to. The one up top, I had a huge problem when I originally dropped this tank, just basically getting it on latch. Normally what you would do is you just push on the little retainer. You push it in, it basically expands the clips, and the evap line or whatever line you use slides out. Well, in my case, that didn't happen. So the first time around, I was able to put a screwdriver in and actually go in reverse and spread the tabs out and push them out. Well, the second time when I had to drop the tank, it just wouldn't budge. So I ended up breaking the retaining clip and just bought some new ones. So the good thing is, obviously, you can get some new replacement parts for that. Now, this is how I ended up with this new to me crossover pipe. When I started my reinstallation, one thing that I totally screwed up on, and something that I brought up, and something that I should have known. I got off work, it was late, it was super cold. I said, you know what, I'm going to attempt this. So I got everything lined up, I got the tank inside. My harness is through this opening here, right? My fill hose is now on my filler neck, blah, blah, blah. I have evap line hooked up. But I forgot to put motor oil on this sleeve that slides into here. It actually lives like this. It lives inside. And you do need some pressure to get all this stuff kind of organized and seated. So you need to put some oil on this sleeve here. You also need to oil your O-rings. Remember, most of these jobs that you see on YouTube, they don't replace the return lines. They also don't replace anything on the crossover pipe. But for me, your crossover pipe is going into your brand new O-rings, which have no give. Also, the O-rings that are replaced here in the main throat of this crossover hole. And yes, I forgot to oil all that stuff. And long story short, somehow, some way, this sleeve, believe it or not, actually came out of the pipe and got wedged in here. And I just could not make the connection. I was literally like 1/8 of an inch off from making the connection, but everything happens for a reason, right? So I just couldn't get it done, and I ended up dropping the tank. I ended up removing everything, and I found this sleeve actually wedged, and that's where it's supposed to live, wedged inside this opening here, and I had to work it out. But then I realized that this tab was busted off. I tried to glue it first, but then I said, why am I going to go with this super glue, which will disintegrate anyway, because this is where your fuel passes when you fill your tanks. Obviously, your driver's side tank fills up first, and then it goes over to your passenger side. So went online, found a deal on this crossover pipe. Once again, here's the driver's side. This is the missing sleeve. This is the passenger side. You got the sleeve in there. And as you can see, on this side, you see those retainers, which one of them broke on mine. It actually holds, if you look over here, see it's nice and solid if you push on it. And if you take this one, like mine was, it's all over the place. It's sliding in and out, so it will never work. You'll never be able to reassemble it. Well, you'll be able to reassemble it, but you're not going to be able to actually make a proper connection when it goes into the tank. So I just got the sleeve reinstalled. Got my evap clip put in, as I showed you guys. Now the trick with these little clips, let me just show you on this one. So you see this little tab right here? If you ever have to remove it, just take a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, just put a little pressure on it like this, and then same thing on the opposite side, and it'll just basically just turn it clockwise, or I'm sorry, counterclockwise, and it will unlock itself. And then once you unlock it, you can pull it straight out. When I installed my new one, I put a little bit of oil on this outside diameter, and I slid it in, and I basically slid it into position, and then all you do is you push on the pipe like this. So let me just kind of show you. Push on the pipe like this, the lines will basically protrude out, and then you take the lines at the same time, and then you turn them counterclockwise. So they do move. So you turn them, and then what happens is the lines get locked into this retainer clip, and aka sleeve. It basically serves two purposes. It guides the crossover into this cavity here to fully seat, but it also retains your fuel lines, the return lines, so they don't push back and they fully seat into the O-rings. So anyway, we've just had a pretty big snowstorm here. This is all I'm going to do today. Maybe next week, depending on the weather, I'm going to go ahead and reattempt this installation, but I am going to wait for a day where it's at least 32 or above. When I tried to do this the first time, it was like, I don't know, I want to say like 17 degrees, 12 degrees Fahrenheit. So not ideal. But anyway, I'll keep you guys posted. Yeah, it's definitely not as easy as it sounds. It's not as easy as you read. And nobody said it was easy. So in my case, I actually learned something new with this crossover pipe. It can happen to you, and if it does, just know that, yes, you can't. So for one thing is you can't get this separate. So you have to either buy a brand new crossover pipe. It'll have those sleeves. The actual fuel lines inside you can buy separate, either brand new or used. But if you run into the same position where somehow either doing reassembly or during disassembly, that sleeve comes out, as long as the fuel lines aren't damaged, you'll be able to replace them by just buying something like this for 40 bucks versus paying $100 and some at the dealer brand new. Alrighty guys, I'll keep you posted.